So it goes live.
Hi guys, I'm Nathan Pearson. I'm here with Craig Huey, as you all probably all know. Craig has been...
Oh, why don't you do that at noontime?
We can do that.
Okay, I'll just talk to the people right now. Why don't you have Anthony go ahead and sign up? Hi everyone. While we're waiting for people to join us at noontime, I'm just going to give you kind of a update on things and what we're doing, and appreciate you coming in a little bit early. So first thing I'd like to do is say that the election form website is almost completely up. We still are posting things in Northern California. We're still posting things in different areas, in some of the local races. It's a huge job. And thanks for your patience. We're getting it up as fast as we can. We've got most of the information up already. And if I sound a little hoarse, it's because I had lost my voice a couple of days ago. And so with God's grace, here we go. We're moving ahead with it. And I think we're doing fine. So as we get ready for this webinar, we'll start officially at noontime. But let me just tell you, some of you have been wondering about the issue of whether or not the Senate race, who we're going to recommend, how we're going to make that recommendation. Let me just tell you this, that we have been struggling as to who to recommend. We finally are going to post our recommendation, and those who are listening in on this webinar are going to be the very first ones to be able to know how to vote their values. And so I'm excited about that. And oftentimes when I go church to church, we will have Shelley with me, and she will sometimes come up at front, but always come up at back and be able to pray. And so we're not going to be able to have her for this webinar, but she sends her best, and I'll give you an update on Corey once we start. So I've got here Nathan with me. He's going to help out. Nathan, what time is it?
We're at 11:59, 12 o'clock.
All right. So why don't we go ahead and we'll start the webinar.
Sounds good. Hi guys, how are you doing? I'm Nathan Pearson. With us today, and thanks for joining us, is Craig here, as you all know and we all love. He has been doing 25 years of amazing research in reviewing candidates. He is also a publisher of Reality Alert, which is for evangelical Christians, and then he also publishes Huey Report on economics and policies. Craig has won over 86 awards with his marketing business. He is a business owner. He is a Fox commentator, and he also is an author with a new book coming out right now called The Deep State. And thanks for joining us again. Also on the right side, if we're looking at our screens, we have a chat window, and we'll have some polls as well for you guys so we can interact with you guys. And let's dive deep into it. Thanks so much.
All right. We've got a lot to cover. And so, you know, what I do is I go from church to church and sometimes some secular groups to be able to go down and how to vote your values. And, you know, sometimes there's a lot of confusion and a lot of deception. And so we want to make sure that our vote is right. And so when I go church to church, we basically go down the ballot. But here's the thing. Because of a thing called the Johnson Amendment, which I'll talk about in a moment, we are not able to actually make a recommendation. So I just talk about the issues and give them the information. And so here, I'm actually going to make a recommendation and tell you how to be able to vote your values based upon our research and talking to the candidates and a lot of stuff. And so I'll explain all that as we go ahead. And one other thing, and that is this. I want to make sure that you understand that what we're recommending here, we get no money for. Individuals donate to us. We never take a penny from a candidate. And we never have, and we never will. Nobody can buy a recommendation. So what we do is based upon objective analysis coming out of the research that we do from thousands of people who are praying for us and contributing to have us do the research. All right, with that said, I'd like to just, since we're doing this webinar to the evangelical conservative Catholics, and this webinar will be a little bit different than the one we'll do that's a secular one. Because most of the people joining us for this webinar are evangelical Christians, I'd like to open in prayer. Father God, thank you for everyone here. Help guide and direct our decisions in this important election coming up. Edit what I have to say and direct it. We thank you for this time. In Jesus Christ's name, amen. All right, let's start. And Nathan, why don't you go ahead? So we're going to go ahead and go through this entire presentation I do at the churches. And we're going to start with, what is a Christian worldview? We're going to focus on religious freedom. We're going to take a look at the key issues that vote your values, the candidate research, and then turning this around. Now, the first 15 minutes, I just want to give you an overview of what's going on. Then we'll get into the governor's race and some of these other key issues. So when we take a look at this, you know, our Christian worldview, our biblical worldview, is based upon 2 Corinthians 5:17. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. Old things have passed away. Behold, all things have become new. In Romans 12:2. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is the good and acceptable and perfect will of God. And, you know, God's going to guide you as a new creation in Christ on how to vote. Ephesians 2:10 says, for we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works. Voting is one of those good works, because your vote will affect the future and be recorded in eternity. Now, everything we talk about is based upon the Word of God. From there, we get truth, reality, and it dictates what we do with the family, and career, and politics. That's all unified. And everything that we do is centered upon Jesus Christ. And it doesn't matter if it's business, home, it doesn't matter if it's any type of activity we have. It's all centered upon Jesus Christ. So let's go to the next. There are a lot of competing worldviews. And as Christians, we have to recognize we are up against so many different competing worldviews. And the nones are the ones that are the most significant, because they're the young millennials, most of them from Christian families. And so when we take a look at Christian history and our founding, we find that they also were in a time of turmoil like today. And Sam Adams, one of the founding fathers, he said, let each citizen remember he is offering his vote, that he's executing one of the most solemn trusts in human society for which he is accountable to God and his country. And James Garfield, do you know what James Garfield's occupation was before he became president? He was Pastor Garfield. He looked around, I'll talk about this at the very end, about the Second Great Awakening, but he was looking around and he saw just his society around him, and government included, just falling apart. And he said, now more than ever before, the people are responsible for the character of their Congress. If that body be ignorant, reckless, and corrupt, it is because the people tolerate ignorance, recklessness, and corruption. Boy, is that true today. And today we have this war on Christianity, and we're losing it in the legislation, in different attacks on homeschooling, churches, pro-life centers, a growing assault on religious liberty. And this is the rise and triumph of secularism and relativism. And yet, our vote is important. Nationwide, there are 80 million evangelical voters, but 35 to 46% are not registered in your church. 45 to 55% who are registered are not voting. So when we look at the 2016 election, 52% did not vote. Here in California, we could transform city council, school board, county races, state races, every race, if the church would get out and vote. 7.2 million did not vote in the election. 6.7 did, with 14 million evangelical Christians here in California. So the evangelical vote was interesting. 25% of all votes in 2016 were evangelical voters. And what was interesting is Clinton got 16%, Trump got 81%. Why did Trump get such a high percentage? Well, I got to tell you, back around April of 2016, Shelley and I went back to New York, and we were going to go with some evangelical leaders to meet with Trump to see where he stood on the issues. And Trump, I got this call that, no, it's going to be 100 people, then 200 people, and then 500 people, and then close to 800 people. And Trump, he comes out to a room that has David Jeremiah and Greg Laurie and James Dobson and Franklin Graham and every important author, radio personality, mega church pastor are there. And what happens is 1/3 are for him, 1/3 are against him. And 1/3 don't know. He comes out, and what does he say? The first thing he says is, I'm going to do away with the Johnson Amendment. And they looked at each other in standing ovation. They couldn't believe it. First person ever running for president who said he'd do away with the Johnson Amendment that takes away the pastor's First Amendment rights. You see, the reason when I go to churches, I don't give recommendations. It could put that church in jeopardy of losing its tax exemption because of the Johnson Amendment. So Trump promised to get rid of it, and he's working to do that now. He also said, I will appoint to the Supreme Court a conservative, and he did. And he said, I will defund Planned Parenthood. And he went on with other things that are of importance to evangelical Christians, and he won over most. And so a massive amount of prayer went into that campaign, and a massive amount of concentrated effort on key states where churches talked about the issues, mobilized the people, and got Christians out who never voted before. And that helped put Trump into the win column on those key states. And it was because of the church vote. And 81%, as you can see, is historical for the church vote. And the born again, evangelical, 81% is bigger than any of these other voting blocks. So as Christians, we can change California. We can. And I just got back from a meeting with 150 pastors who never before have been involved in politics, and they want to engage. And we've been having these meetings with Hispanic pastors in San Diego and other places. So we're going to see change, and I hope it's going to be this year. And here's the thing. As a Christian, you need to know how to vote your values. And when I'm in churches I'll tell you about this Hispanic church. We were in a Hispanic church that had 1,000 people. And most of them never thought about the fact that when you vote, where does that candidate stand on Israel? Where does the candidate stand on abortion? Where does the candidate stand on religious liberty? All these issues are important. We're going to look at where the candidates stand on these because those are more important on all the races than other issues. So you need to prioritize it, especially since we're under such attack. Please pray for Jack Phillips, Masterpiece Cake Shop. It's before the Supreme Court. But because he stands for biblical truth, he's lost his business. This Orleans Flowers, she's going to lose her retirement, her home, because she had a lawsuit against her because when two of her regular clients, who she always sold flowers to and she greeted and she loved with the love of Jesus, she said, they asked her to do a lesbian wedding. She said, I can't. You can go down the street. I'll sell you flowers, but I can't do that. It would violate my biblical values. And they sued her. Another case happened in New Mexico, and this is what the judge said. This is the price of citizenship. Christians must compromise, if only a little, to accommodate the contrasting values of others. The world is telling us we have to compromise. And that's the battle today, trying to force us to compromise. I want to show you this petition. If you haven't signed our petition yet, please do. Here in California, they're about ready to do something that takes away our First Amendment rights. And whether somebody's Jewish, atheist, what have you, they should be horrified at this. You see, Christ has transformed many people who have same-sex attraction or gender confusion. Yet the politicians are trying to force everyone to be obedient to their belief in homosexuality and lesbianism and other things. And so they're saying that a Christian counselor, pastor, a book, maybe even the Bible, cannot be sold or used in California. And we have to compromise. Take a look at what one Assemblyman, Al Martucci, said. Let's see if we can pull that up.
I want to make it absolutely clear that the First Amendment does not prohibit banning fraudulent conduct. The faith community, like anyone else, needs to evolve with the times.
The full thing here, the faith community, like anyone else, needs to evolve with the times. The science is clear. The claim that the First Amendment can be used as a defense of promoting fraudulent conduct is a fallacious argument. And so we have a petition on our website. Please sign that. We're fighting to make sure that bill is defeated. And I'm going to show you the candidates that are for that bill as we go along. Next. So we have a world in crisis, turned upside down, with genocide against Christians. It's growing in India. Indonesia just had church bombings. China's cracking down on Christians. We have to have people elected who care about brothers and sisters in Christ. We have this historic debt. We have to have people who understand free market economics and what to do about the economy. We have, taxes. I mean, do you know you work for the government nationwide until April 19th, here in California, April 23rd, and it's going to spike into mid-May next year? We have a crisis with taxes. And we get poor grades on everything here in California. We have a state that is broken and policies that are broken. We have the worst tax rates, the number one poverty, homelessness, state in crime increase. And let me just say this. I was going to mention at the beginning. Many of you know what happened to my son, 28-year-old son, Corey, that he had an attempted robbery by 3 gangbangers, and they shot him 5 times just about a month and a half ago. And there's been so many prayers, so many letters. People have helped out financially. We really appreciate it. And he's recovering dramatically. He's a miracle he's alive. It's a miracle he's recovering. So keep him in prayer. We're really thankful to you guys. And Corey's super thankful. And you've been an encouragement to him. And incidentally, they haven't found the shooter yet. The 2 people that were with the shooter were in jail for 10 days. They did catch them, but they let them go. This is the broken crime system we have here in California. So we see jobs leaving. Right in my area, 5,000 people from Toyota left. We have people leaving. I mean, many of you know or have been thinking about leaving yourself. I can't believe how many people subscribing to Reality Alerts said, I've left. And so that's why our newsletter's gone nationwide now, because of that. And then we have a bloated bureaucracy. For example, all these people are making over $100,000, 20, 50 people in each department, and they're all doing basically the same thing at the University of San Diego. So what happens? Kids leave, middle class leaves, wealthy flee, retirees give up, entrepreneurs leave, businesses leave, and our quality of life goes down, costs go up. So as Christians, here's how we should do. We have a moral responsibility to do something, not sit back. We need to be able to vote on Christian world view issues, and we need to be able to influence elections. So how do you vote? There's 2 ways. One's called strategically limiting evil. The other is lesser of 2 evils is evil. Lesser of 2 evils is when you vote for the perfect candidate. And that might be you, but the perfect candidate and no compromise. Strategically limiting evil means you're careful who you vote for. For example, if somebody is for abortion and somebody's for abortion but against partial birth abortion, you're strategically limiting evil by voting for the candidate that's against partial birth abortion. You're saving some babies. And so that's pretty much what most Christians will do. And in today's society, we need to limit as much evil as we can. And I'll explain that as we go on. Now, as we look at the candidates, I can't look at their heart. Only God can look at their heart. Now, let's talk about something really important. And that has to do with these slate mailings and all the stuff you're getting in the mail. You get in the mail, you get email, you get in the Facebook. This is called a slate mailer. Let me explain slate mailers first, and then I'll talk about the hit pieces. So, you want to go live? So, live. Yeah, we're good. Okay. So with a slate mailer, you've seen these. You get them in the mail, and they basically list all the different candidates. But they could be like from the Howard Jarvis Association. Now, Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association is a great group. But there's a company that uses that name, the picture of Howard Jarvis. Sometimes they'll even have the executive director having an article that they have nothing to do with it. It's a private group. And the candidates they recommend and support are all ones that are basically against what Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association stands for. This one is one that has the different candidates. It says, continuing the Republican Revolution, has picture of Ronald Reagan on it. But inside, the judges are progressive, liberal Democrats that it's being endorsed. And then, this has been very common lately. This one says, City of Los Angeles marks sample ballot for Republican voters. And some of them have, you know, the Republican elephant. You get inside, there's a letter from the Republican Party. Page, this other page is a page to be able to donate to the Republican Party. And then inside, all the people that are marked on the ballot are Democrats. And it completely fools many Republicans. Don't believe these things. Now, when you get something in the mail, email, Facebook, the best thing to do is ignore it. Don't believe it. Because they're written by the most warped kind of lying copywriters and political strategists, these consultants, and you can't believe them. I believe, you know, this campaign, for example, there are, let's take John Cox and Travis Allen. There's people who are talking about Travis Allen, and some of the things they're saying are not true. But let's take the thing about John Cox, same thing. I mean, some people are saying, oh, he's a tool of George Soros. Nothing is further than the truth. He has opposed the socialism since he's been a kid. And he has a initiative for called the Neighborhood Initiative, where it brings local control. And there was some donation made that had some group that had some past association with George Soros. Nothing to do with John Cox. Yet they say he is funded by George Soros. False and a lie. Or let's take a look at this one. This is a mailer that is going out now. And it says on here, John Cox spent millions on losing campaigns in Illinois. And it says, Chicago lawyer, former Democrat, and perennial candidate. And it's a hit piece. And you know who's sending it out? It is the Charter School Association. If you look on the back, a tiny little box, who's sending this out? This is a political hit piece filled with lies and things you can't trust. Yeah, John Cox was a Democrat when he was 21. And when he was 24, he became a Republican. And he's been a Republican since 1980. And he's ran against Barack Obama as a Republican. And he worked with Jack Kemp with Reagan campaign as a Republican. And so he has a history of being written. That's why these things are a total lie. There's a lie. The other thing sent in here, is that he pushed to raise the minimum wage. 100% no. There's a thing going out where he says, I don't believe in the wall. 100% no. He believes in building the wall. Somebody took his comment that the wall is not the only thing, and they cut it. And then the rest of it was, you have to have immigration reform, you have to have E-Verify and other things. So these things you can't believe, so don't trust it. We cut through that confusion and those lies. So we do all the extensive research on all the different groups to see what they believe. We look at the qualifications. Are they conservative, libertarian? What are they? Do they believe in the free market? Are they willing to fight to protect religious freedom, social issues? Is there integrity and consistency? Do they inspire and engage? And then we look at different disqualifiers. We look, do we need to strategically limit evil? Maybe there's a better candidate, but they have no chance of winning, but the other one does. And then we take a look at one of the key things about winning. That's money and having a plan. Something that's a big plan. And we have to. Everybody who is registered for this webinar, we expect over 1,000 people to watch this webinar. And what we're going to be doing is send you Indivisible, which is what is the left's Bible for how to organize and change the 2018 election for the progressives. And they're so organized and they're so fighting so hard. And we've got to be able to do a better job. I'm just going to mention this one guy, and this is Tom Steyer. He's spending $74.4 million with paid and volunteer door knockers, with targeted direct mail and digital, phone calls, texts. And his whole thing is to impeach President Trump and to be able to ultimately run for office 2 years from now for himself. Just the amount of money coming in is incredible. Look at this. Real estate PAC, hospital PAC. All this is money this week that went to the California Democratic Party by these groups. Newsom, he got $2.3 million from SEIU. Chang got $2.4 million against him. And yesterday, we found that coming in was all this money. Bloomberg for the mayor of Los Angeles running. We had a lot of money coming in for Newsom. So you see, it's big money. But here's the thing. Trump showed that we can win without having as much money as they have. That's awesome. But you have to have some money. The biggest mistake is, you win it based upon good ideas. You win it because you're a better candidate. That doesn't work. You win it because you use the money you have smart. Look at the money difference. By all traditional considerations, $1.4 billion should have helped Hillary win that campaign. But $957 million was what Trump had. And he used it smarter than Hillary. Hillary used the people who got Obama elected in 2012 campaign. Trump used the most modern techniques because things change, data changes, and he was able to have the money, use it for data collecting to build a database, take a digital campaign and targeted direct mail and ignore the TV and other stuff where you can't collect data and can't target, and then he tied all that data to getting out the vote, and he had a victory. And that's what has to be done. And that's one of the things we looked at for this campaign. So when we talk about this, let's get into the governor's race. 27 candidates running. And some of them are really good. Like Robert Newman is an evangelical Christian, but he doesn't have the money, the data collection, and what have you, like most of the other candidates. There's 6 key candidates. There's John Chang. He's been controller and treasurer. He tries to run as a moderate, but he's as progressive and socialist as any of them. Delane Easton was his former superintendent of education. She tried to put to death homeschooling when she was there. Gavin Newsom wants to run for president, as is the mayor of Los Angeles. Gavin is basically as progressive left as you can get. Our state will be in such a mess if he gets to be governor, but he's the front runner. And then Antonio is fighting hard to be number 2. John Cox often is number 2. John Cox is a businessman, a CPA, a venture capitalist, and John Cox is a conservative. Travis Allen has been in the assembly for about 5 years. He is a investment analyst, and he also is a conservative. So when we talk about these, I had to take a look in evaluating these candidates based upon their data collection, their money, their digital targeted marketing, because in this race, only the top 2 are going to be elected. They could have 2 Democrats or 2 Republicans. But the reality is, with the amount of money and what's going on in politics here in California, we're very likely to have 2 Democrats winning the June election and no Republicans, no conservatives, no libertarians at all. So what we will have is no choice. And so for that reason, I have endorsed John Cox for governor because he has consistently been number 2, beating out Antonio. He has money. Right now, Travis has, last I looked, on about $1 million with some debt. I'm sorry, he has $130,000 plus some debt. And that's a problem. You know, let's look at where these candidates stand on the issues, and I'll tell you why I chose John Cox. But John has 5.2 million. And overall, Travis has been able to raise about 1.1. John Chang, 12.8. Gavin Newsom, 26.5. Elaine has less than $1 million. And Antonio, 22 million. Most of that is from the charter schools, from the president of Netflix, from some very wealthy people who believe in charter schools. And they're trying to get Antonio to be the governor. And that's why they did a hit piece on John to knock him down from number 2. So John has become the number 1 issue because he is the one that is number 2 that Antonio has to beat. Next. The number 1 reason to vote for governor, we have the worst Supreme Court of any state for being a progressive activist court. And the governor appoints the lieutenant governor. Now, you can get a copy of this. I will send you a link, and it's also on the website. If you signed up for this, I'll send you the link. These are the issues. You can see where this candidates stand. The Democrats all are against educational choice. They're all for single payer. They're all against homeschooling. And you know what? They basically are in such agreement that I would classify them not just as progressive, almost socialist. Now, Travis Allen and John Cox, as you can see, they agree on every issue. Both of them are conservative. I've known Travis before he was an assemblyman. I've had many times of talks and discussions with John Cox. I even went down to talk to him in San Diego at his home. I've interviewed these guys. The day before I made the endorsement for John, I talked to Travis. And I told him, you know, after he told me he didn't have the money and didn't have the polling, that, you know, I would, if it had been switched and Travis had more money and Travis had the polling, I would have gone for Travis. But a vote for Travis would be a vote for Antonio. And so I asked Travis to drop out of the race. When I saw him in San Diego at the Republican convention, He understood what I did. I saw him a couple of times. Last time I saw him, he gave me a big hug. So he understands where I'm coming from. But you can see on these issues, they're all the same. They're all solid conservative. Sanctuary state and city, same thing. All solid. But the Democrats, they want to really destroy our state. And of great concern to me is the religious liberty issue. You know, the protection of Christian business owners. This whole thing, last year, there was a fight where Biola and Azusa would basically have to leave the state of California and go out of business. Well, all the Democrats supported that bill. And this AB 2943 is the one that will ban the Bible. And all the Democrats support it. And Travis Allen and John Cox are against it. The same thing with the homeschooling that was just defeated a few weeks ago. Came so close to passing. But all the Democrats supported what would basically do is destroy homeschooling. And what about abortion? Psalm 139 says, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place. When I was woven together in the depths of the earth, your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. How precious to me are your thoughts, O God. How vast is the sum of them. Were I to count them, it would outnumber the grains of sand." God loves you so much, even when you were in the womb. And as Christians, we need to make a stand for life. And one of the things on this is, you know, John Cox has gotten a number of endorsements. Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association has endorsed him. But so has the Pro-Life Council. And the Pro-Life Council has endorsed him because he has been consistently pro-life. And I would call Travis, I know a lot of Christian leaders and anti-abortion advocates are opposed to Travis. But Travis is pro-life. But it is true. That has not been his issue. It is true that Travis abstained and even voted bad on one bill on this issue. And that's why the Pro-Life Council and the different pro-life groups have gone for John Cox. That's why many of the Christian leaders like Gary Bauer have gone for John Cox over Travis Allen. And if Travis were to get it, if Travis had, was able to make it into number 2 or number 1, he'd be pro-life. He'd get our support. But he has not been strong and consistent on that issue. And what about partial birth abortion? This is where if the baby came out completely and they killed the baby, that would be infanticide. It's a viable life. But what they do is they take it partially out of the womb and suck out the brain. And the Democrats consistently are for that. Both Travis and John are against it. I'm going to send this to you. This is a political spectrum of where the candidates stand between right and left. And as you can see, John Cox and Travis Allen are right next to each other. Now, what about their ratings? I rate each candidate on where they stand on the issues, and let me give you what that rating is. So you can see on a conservative worldview, John has 18%, Delana 0%, Gavin 1%, Antonio 2%. These people will try to undermine the religious community and a Christian worldview consistently. Travis Allen has 86, conservative biblical worldview, John Cox 95. In regards to more government, John tries to be the moderate. He has 68. Delane has 84. Gavin 91, Antonio 86. These are all progressive liberal socialists. And Travis Allen, 14%, John Cox, 13%. And what about the lieutenant governor's race? In this race, it's a race of money. You can see on this biblical worldview for Ed Hernandez, who is spending millions, as you'll see, is 1. Elena is 3. David Hernandez is 90. Cole Harris, we don't know, and I'll talk about him. And Jeff Belch, he has 6. And you can see where they stand on more government programs. So let me tell you about these guys. Ed is a progressive liberal from the assembly. Alina, her dad is a multimillionaire and has been an ambassador and pouring in an incredible amount of money. David is an evangelical Christian conservative. Cole Harris is the mystery man. We know nothing about Cole Harris. And Jeff, he is a very wealthy left-wing progressive. And you can see some of the support from these people. Alina is really kind of the woman vote for Emily's List. And now Emily's List is the pro-abortion group. Equality California is the gay lesbian group. The Nurses Associations for Ed Hernandez. SEIU's for Ed Hernandez. You can see David's got the California Republican Assembly and apartment owners. Cole Harris has the Republican Party nomination. Now, you can see the money. Cole has the money. David Hernandez, who is right on all the issues, doesn't have any money. David Hernandez is not going to come in number 2. I have recommended David Hernandez because I don't know who Cole Harris is. I met him in San Diego and asked him to get in touch with me. I met 3 of his staff members and asked them to get in touch with me. Other people have tried to get his positions. He won't give his position. He's like the unknown. I don't know this guy other than he is extremely wealthy. And because of that, the Republican Party said, we'll go for Cole Harris. Until I know who he is and where he stands, I cannot endorse him. And I think it would be dangerous to conservatives, to religious liberty, to free market economics, to go for somebody who could turn out to be a complete traitor. And for that reason, I'm recommending David Hernandez. On the issues, you can see David Hernandez is right on all the issues, and we don't know anything about Cole Harris. We know on the Secretary of State race a lot more. Now, there's some good candidates running for Secretary of State. The 2 that are the most viable is Alex Padilla. He's the one who says voter fraud does not exist in California. And Mark Muser, he's the one who says it does, and I will prove it. Alex, he refuses to be able to do anything to prove that there's not voter fraud. I've got proof. I've written articles. I hope you've seen them. If not, I'd be glad to send them to you on these. And here's the thing with these voter fraud. Part of my investigation, because I'm using it for an upcoming book, is I, from my office, used a phony name to my address and got a vote by mail ballot. And anybody who is here illegally and they get one of those driver's license that is for those who are undocumented, if they don't check off a certain box, they're automatically going to be registered to vote. So we got to stop the voter fraud here in California. And besides that, on the top 10 family value issues, Mark stands 100% yes, Alex 100% no. In regards to the controller, good candidates running, but the best, Costas Roditas. He's got my recommendation. Betty Yee, she is the one that has the big money and the big endorsements. But she's 100% no on the family value issues. Costas is 100% yes. In the treasurer's race, very important race with Fiona versus Jack, we're recommending Jack for treasurer because he is a far better candidate. He is 100% on the top 10 family issues, and he doesn't have much money, so he doesn't have much of a chance. That's the sad part. On the attorney general, We right now have Xavier Becerra, who is filing lawsuit after lawsuit against the Trump administration. He also has filed a lawsuit against David Denham, who did the video, underground video of Planned Parenthood selling body parts. Well, because Xavier didn't like it, he's doing this lawsuit against this film producer, forcing him into millions of dollars of court costs. It's horrendous. So in looking at this, there's a number of candidates. The two top Democrats are Dave Jones, former insurance commissioner, and he's trying to run a little bit to the left, a little bit more progressive than Xavier. He has 2.5 million. Xavier has 5 million. And this is the group, this is the position that actually writes the ballot propositions. Steve Bailey is an awesome judge who I highly recommend. He's gotten the California Republican Party endorsement. He's gotten conservative endorsement. He's got the religious community endorsement. He doesn't have as much money as his opponents, but I got to tell you, he is the best candidate, and I think he can be viable. I think he could come in number 2 as the Democrats split the vote. On the insurance commissioner, we took like a Ricardo Lara. Now, he's been a state senator, and he's the one who authored the bill that would have killed Christian education in California. He's running against a former insurance commissioner, Steve Poizner, who used to be a Republican. He's now running as nonpartisan. On top 10 family issues, Ricardo's 100% no, Steve 80% yes. You can see Steve doesn't have as much money, but I think there's a good chance he'll win at least the second spot for June. State Superintendent of Public Instruction is a battle that you can't believe. Now, I like charter schools. I don't like what they're doing against John Cox to try to knock him out of the race. But I like charter schools as one of many private schools, Christian schools, homeschooling. So I've interviewed Marshall Tuck running against Tony Thurmond. Tony is from the Assembly. He is a tool of the California Teachers Association. It's the most radical group that spends millions of dollars in California and stops charter schools. It wants to stop homeschooling. And so you can see these issues. Tony wants to regulate homeschooling. He wants to he doesn't want to have any change in tenure reform. He doesn't want to do any type of school choice. But you look at Marshall Tuck, and he's interesting. For example, allowing religious songs at Christmas, Tony says no, Marshall says yes. How about obviously protecting homeschooling and protecting charter schools? What about transgender bathroom bill? Tony wants to keep it. Marshall's open to changing it. Parental notification, Marshall's for it. So these are important differences, and for that reason, I strongly recommend Marshall Tuck. On the Senate race, we really have a problem. And you can vote on a poll we have on who you want for senator, and we'll just see who you want for senator. But here's the thing. You have 2 Democrats that are running that have, out of 32 candidates, that have a lot of money. And then you have conservatives and libertarians who are running who don't really have any money. I know many of them. Tom, Paul, Aaron, Arun, and Herb. Let me just tell you about them. Herb's a Christian. I've known him for many years. Herb is a libertarian. He's a warrior. I love this guy. Arun's a smart businessman. Aaron Cruz is the favorite of the Tea Party. Tom is the favorite of the California Republican Assembly and many of the conservative groups, and Paul Taylor. Well, Paul is trying to go after the Christian vote. But none of them have money. None of them can organize to get data. None of them can do digital or direct mail. None of them can do a campaign. There's no way any of them are going to come in number 2. So I've been trying to decide who's going to raise money, who's going to be the viable candidate. And I just have not found anybody. And so in our poll right now, we have Paul Taylor at 43, Tom at, 57? So Tom is getting a lot of conservative activists. Paul, he's trying to mobilize different Christians in different churches. And so here's the thing. As you can see from this, Tom has an 89 from a conservative Christian review. Paul has a 96. Aaron has a 63. On more government programs, Tom has a 19, Paul has a 9, and Aaron has a 14. So in looking at this, it's a flip of the coin. So who do you go for? I can't strategically eliminate evil. I got to eliminate if we can beat Kevin, because I believe we can beat Dianne Feinstein. But there's no viable candidate to do it. And I think when June comes around, the two candidates are going to be Kevin versus Dianne. So because of that, I am going to make my recommendation for Paul Taylor for senator. I'm going to be posting that today. On the abortion issue, we're not sure when on a couple of things with Tom and Aaron. They haven't answered the questions on that. Parental consent, Aaron hasn't answered the question, but Paul and Tom are good on that. On religious liberty, a lot of questions Aaron hasn't answered. Paul is 100% good on it. Tom's 100% good on it. And then Israel, we don't know about Aaron. I assume she's good on it, but she in an embassy in Israel, she just hasn't answered our questions. So what about the campaign? Take a look at this. Diane's polling's 42, Kevin's is 16, Tom, Paul, and Aaron don't even show up in the polls. Well, why don't they show up in the polls? Well, look at Dianne has 14 million, Kevin has 1 million, Paul has 8,000, Aaron has 16,000. Tom doesn't have any money, and they can't run a viable campaign. We needed to have one conservative Christian running for office with the ability to get money, with the ability to get the data, with the ability to do the targeted marketing, and they could have come in second. All they needed was $800,000. They could have beat the second top Democrat, but we didn't have it. Board of Equalization, real quick. We are recommending on there that you vote for Ted Gaines if you're in District 1. For District 2, and taking a look at District 2, we're recommending that you vote for Kathleen for District number 2. For District 3, I've known Rick Marshall for a long time. We recommend Rick Marshall for District 3 Board of Equalization. In District 4, very good guy, Joe Anderson, we recommend for District number 4. Now, the proposition, sometimes when you vote yes, you're voting no, and sometimes when you're voting no, you're voting yes. So when we talk about the biggest taxpayer ripoff, I can't really say that when I'm at a church. To you, I can say it. So let's talk about it. What is that? Well, it's Proposition 68. It says it's a $4.1 billion general obligation bond. It says that 1/3 of it will go to parks, 1/3 to natural resource protection, 1/3 to water quality. And here's the reality and truth. It's really a $7.8 billion bond because you have to pay $3.8 billion in interest. Instead of going to dams and prisons and law enforcement, instead of for roads, it's going to bankers and investors. The construction people love this. And it goes to bike lanes. It goes to all the stuff that's not necessary. So a yes vote means the state could sell the 4.1 general obligation bond. A no vote means no, the state will not sell it. So I agree with the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. Even though money hasn't come in to defeat it, we got to defeat it. We can't afford another bond. Vote no on this one. And just remember this. Since 2000, voters have authorized $27 billion in bonds for these type of things. For every dollar raised, you have to pay back $2 because it's not free money. And as interest rates go up, as they will, so do the costs. And our bond debt is huge. We've got to be able to stop that craziness. Now, Proposition 69. This one requires that certain new transportation revenues be used for transportation purposes. Legislative Consultant Amendment. Now, this one is so poorly worded that it really doesn't matter. So if you vote yes, the state must use recent tax hike for transportation only. You see, we had this massive tax hike from the cap and trade and from other things. And so it's saying that it's supposed to be used just for transportation. A no vote says a protest vote because it's poorly worded. Because most of the money, even if you vote yes, will still go to the bullet train to nowhere, the bike lanes, the habitat. So the supporters on this, California Hospital Association, California Democratic Party, California Republican Assembly, they against it, or some conservatives will say it's a protest vote. It really doesn't matter how you vote on this one. In principle, the money should be used only for transportation. So in principle, I'm voting yes. I'm recommending yes. If you vote no, it's just a protest because it's such a bad thing. Bill, next. And what about the most deceptive proposition of 2018 award? This one, next one gets that award this year. That's Proposition 70. So 8 Republicans betrayed the Republican Party and voted for cap and trade, which resulted in over 80 cents spike in your gas tax. You know, about $5 billion has already gone into cap and trade, destroying businesses, just chasing out businesses. It's a horrific thing. And most of the money, a lot of the money is going to like the bullet train and what have you. Well, when the Republicans betrayed their no tax pledge and voted for it, one of the agreements was to put Proposition 70 on the ballot. Now, Proposition 70 basically says this: not now, but all the way in 2024, cap and trade revenues will go into a reserve fund until the legislature, by 2/3 majority, authorizes the use of the revenues. And so a yes vote says in 2024, all this money will go into reserve and be waited for a 2/3 vote of the House, the legislature. A no vote means this: the legislature could continue to authorize spending state revenue collected from the sale of greenhouse gas emissions permits with a majority vote. Now, here's the thing. Jerry Brown, who got the cap and trade agreement, is for it. Chad Mays, the Republican who betrayed the party, he's for it. And, you know, it kind of makes sense that let's kind of limit the evil. So on the surface, when I first read this, I thought, you know what? This is kind of a stupid bill. It doesn't really matter that much. But look at the opponents, Tom Steyer, the Democratic Party, and look at the supporters. Kind of weird, but it sounds good. Maybe instead of spending the cap and trade money for all kinds of things, there could be a limitation on it in 2024. So at first I was for it. Now I'm telling people to vote no. And I'm waiting for confirmation from several lawyers that I'm doing right. Because what this does, it's a legislative constitutional amendment, which means if we pass this, it puts cap and trade into the Constitution. And if it's in the Constitution, it takes 2/3 of a vote to get rid of cap and trade. Well, I want to get rid of cap and trade. And I'm afraid that voting yes would keep it. So I'm voting no on this. And it's because it's a deceptive proposition. 71. This proposition is basically another constitutional amendment. And what it says is that a majority of voters shall take effect when you pass a proposition. It will take effect 5 days after the Secretary of State certifies the results of the election. What this means is this. Right now, if a proposition passes, before all the votes are counted, if it passes because of the polling booth on election day, it becomes law. But then you got provisional ballots, you've got vote by mail ballots, and that might change the outcome, but it may take up to 6 weeks. And so then what was a winner becomes a loser. So it's common sense to stop that. So a yes vote says keep it the way the state ballot measures would take effect after the statewide vote has been counted and certified about 6 weeks after the election. It makes sense. I'm voting yes on this. Recommend you vote yes on this. A no says keep it the way it is. Proposition 72, in California, we have a water problem. And so water comes down. Sometimes we have huge rainstorms. And then we have drought. And then huge rainstorms. And then drought. Well, we need to have water dams and reserves and what have you. And one of the things that buildings and homes and apartments can have are rain capture systems. And the rain capture system, basically what it does is when rain comes down, it's used for watering lawns or toilets or what have you. And so if you buy one of these, the value of your apartment, home, business building goes up. And so you're taxed more. So what this does is say, if you get one of these systems, the valuation won't go up and you'll be penalized in taxes. So a yes vote is installing a system to collect and store rainwater on a property could result in a higher property tax bill. Could not result in a higher property tax bill. A no vote means it'll stay the way it is, that if you install one, the taxes go up. I'm for this. I think it's a good idea. It's common sense. The judges are the hardest ones. From Northern California to San Diego, we have all the judges rated and being posted. And so go to our website, go to electionforum.org and go to your county. And when you go to your county, you scroll down and you see the judges in your county. You know exactly how to vote for them. And the way we do it is we divide between a strict constructionist, a conservative judge, versus a judicial activist. And they're transforming our society. Millions of dollars by the progressive left is being put into the judicial activist races to be able to take over the courts. So let's stop that. Let's vote right on the judges. So June 5th is the election. 70% of the people are going to vote by mail. And when you go, use our website to see how to vote for Congress, Assembly, county offices, sometimes mayors and city council. And if you go to the poll, you can actually take your cell phone in and be able, and with your cell phone, to look up and simply scroll down as you're doing your ballot. We make it really simple for you. So tell your friends about it. Let them know. We really want to have 1 million people coming to the website to see how to vote their values. And of course, we have a printable voter guide as well. So let's see if we have that. Yeah, thanks, Nathan. We have this printable voter guide that, those big candidate, statewide candidates for governor and the other races, where they stand on the issues. That's all here in this printable voter guide that's right on the website. Now, we are going church to church. Maybe you have a church that we can go to. We go to the church, for going the election forum. I have a Sunday morning service that I do on Joy, another one on Hope. Sometimes we'll combine the different ones on a Sunday morning. Sometimes there'll be an evening service. Sometimes there'll be a special service on the election form. Just talk to us. We'll walk you through it, how to do it. We make it simple. And, you know, the way the 14 million evangelicals will get registered and get out to vote is if we're able to go to your church. A table's not going to do it. Hoping for it's not going to do it. We got to get the churches out to vote, and we do that by coming to your church and going down the ballot. And then Judge Voter Guide is secular, but we hope to have 1 million people there as well. And here are some of the upcoming events where we're going to be, if that happens to be in your area. Love to have you come out and see you. And also, if you'd like to donate to us, that'd be great. If you want to, we can send you a hat. If you want to, we can send you my new book, The Deep State, 14 Surprising Dangers You Should Know. And finally, how should we respond? Let me close off with this, and this is important. I'm going to give you 7 key principles, because we can choose silence, condemnation, or do courage. We can tell the truth in love no matter what the costs are to ourselves. We can sacrifice for freedom, and we can leave a powerful legacy. And you can do that by donating, volunteering to help a candidate or help the election forum, praying. You need to be an instrument of change. And we can turn this around. And I believe those who are on this webinar can be instruments for turning it around. So 7 solutions. Prayer. We don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age. We got to pray for our leaders. We got to pray for these candidates. We need your prayer. 2, we need to intelligently vote. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked man rules, the people groan. And then number 3, we need to seek quality leaders. The fact that you're listening in on this webinar, you might have, pray about this, but you might be the next person to run for city council, school board, assembly, or some other race. And we can help you. We do these boot camps to help train people what to do. And so few Christians get into the public square. That's where we need to be in this postmodern age, in this post-Christian culture that we have. And we need to be salt and light. We need to be advocates. We never forget our priority to know him and to make him known. And there needs to be revival. That ultimately is going to be our answer, isn't it? During the First Great Awakening, that's before the American Revolution. And people all over the countryside were on their knees, hands lifted to God, crying out for forgiveness, accepting Christ as their personal Savior, recognizing he died on the cross for their sins. And you know what happened? This revival, it created the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the American Revolution, a country that has brought prosperity, religious freedom, missionaries, has been the greatest country in the world. And then the Second Great Awakening, our society had fallen downwards. And this was the time of Garfield. And this was when Charles Finney and some of the evangelists were all over the countryside, in tents and on hills, with people raising their hands, crying out for forgiveness, asking Christ in their heart, repenting of their sins. And Charles Finney said, God cannot sustain this free and blessed country which we love and pray for unless the church will take right ground. Politics are part of religion in such a country as this, and Christians must do their duty to the country as part of their duty to God. You know what? We basically need a revival. That revival, Second Great Awakening, helped abolish slavery in America. If it wasn't for that, we would have had slavery much longer. But it's the Christians that are the salt and light. And we need to be able to do that. 2 Chronicles 7:14 says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. We need prayer, fasting, revival. Thanks so much for tuning in. Go to the website, You'll be able to see how to vote your values for all the other races, and try to let others know. Tell people in your small Bible study, at your church. Talk to your pastor. See if we can come to your church. All we need to do is get on the phone and explain what we do and how it's totally compliant. It's nonpartisan. We educate in a way they can't. So, Nathan, are we good? Is there any particular question? We're getting lots of great comments. Thank you so much for these great comments that you're giving, and a lot of encouragement. We will have this webinar posted so you can tell your friends to be able to watch it, or you can simply go to the website. And then for our newsletter, the more people we have subscribing, the more we're going to be able to transform this state and our nation. God bless you guys. Thanks so much.